Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. It has been a while, I feel like, since I sat down and actually filmed a video by myself. If you missed last week's video, I did a video with one of my brothers talking about book recommendations for a younger age group, but it's been a while since I actually sat down and did a video. So today's video, we're going to talk about my books that I read in the month of March. I definitely did better than February, and part of that is because I finished a couple of books that I was working on in February, the beginning of March. Overall, I read 8 books, and that totaled up to be 2,830 pages. So I'm pretty pleased about that number, and April is going pretty well so far. So I'm excited to talk about the books that I read in the month of March. So starting out, I listened to Milla of Green Gables by Sarah McCoy. I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. It just really was not impressive to me. I was going into it hoping for a lot more. It's supposed to be like a spin-off story of Anne of Green Gables and kind of telling the backstory of Marilla and why she is who she is. But it really felt like reading a fictionalized account of a real person's life, because like Anne feels so real to us. If you grew up with her and you watched the movies a bunch, it just feels like this real story. And then reading this felt like someone wrote some fan fiction about it. Like you couldn't really trust the facts that were in there. It felt kind of traitorous like reading it, because it definitely didn't feel like something that Montgomery would have written. And just the details and stuff, I'm kind of mad that I read it, because now I'm reading Anne of Green Gables and it pollutes the way that you think about Marilla, because you think you know something about her life, but it actually wasn't what the original author wrote there. The most annoying part to me was definitely the romance, because in Anne of Green Gables, everyone loves the romance of there. Of course, who didn't have a crush on Gilbert when they were younger, and just the sweet, innocent romance. But this one was very dramatic. It was very kissy. There was a lot of like physical focus to it, and I just didn't feel like Anne and Gilbert at all. So I have a lot of friends who really love this book, love the writing in it. I personally felt like it was not well done and did not enhance my understanding of Anne of Green Gables. The next one is actually a classic that I had on my list at the beginning of the year. I planned to read it, and then it ended up being the pick for a book club Facebook group that I'm a part of. And so it forced me to read it a lot quicker and be able to discuss it with people. So that would be Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. At first, starting out, I didn't like it at all. It felt very like silly and just not like the depth to it that I'm used to in a classic book. But as I went through it, it definitely grew on me. It was super, super dramatic, like a soap opera basically. But I enjoyed it in the way that it was told. It's definitely not on the level of like Dickens or Austen, so don't expect that. But it is like good fiction from like 100 years ago. I really love like the characters in here. Gabriel is just the sweetest, patient, wise man that everyone just like wishes they had. At first you end up liking Boldwood and you feel bad for him, but then he becomes like really creepy and weird. And then there's Troy, which is basically just Wickham, but like worse. He just exists like for his own pleasure. And then there's Bathsheba, that you could write like whole essay on just how weird she is and how like insufferable in the beginning, and she definitely needs like, I guess she just needs a mother. Like you really see that throughout the story, that she doesn't have like a wiser woman to help her out, and she's trying to kind of like find out how to run her life and live in this world. And so you get her going from like very foolish to kind of wise, and you just feel really bad for her, and very like you start to like her. Feel like if there was more of the book, then you would like her more. But honestly, like I think it's like exactly on page 25 that like she could have made a decision that could have ended the book right there, and it would have been happily ever after. But instead she says no, and then we have a whole like 370 pages of her making bad decisions one after another, but then Gabriel just being so sweet and patient. It was really sweet. So I really enjoyed it. There were some like sad parts, some really fun parts. It's very dramatic, like I said, but if you're looking for like a dramatic book that has good characters, and it was written like 100 years ago, so it's much deeper than anything that's written today, I would definitely recommend that you pick this up. I can't remember if I said, but I did give it 4 stars. And then I read The Realms of Wrath and Ruin by Allie Ernest. This is the second book in the Gate Chronicles. If you've been around here, I can't remember, I think it was back in December, I read The Cities of Smoke and Starlight, which was the first book in the series, and I really loved it because it had a depth to it that modern Christian YA fiction doesn't normally have. And it was like sci-fi, fantasy, steampunk, which is not typically a genre I love, but her writing is really good. This book, I gave it 4 stars, and I think it lost a star because it needed to go through some more editing. Like there was more just editing mistakes and inconsistencies in the story that I think should have been dealt with. Okay, my phone ran out of storage, so we had a little break there. As I was saying about the Realms of Wrath and Ruin, It just has some editing mistakes, but overall I think if you like that genre of book, you would like it and just appreciate how well done it is and how it's mostly clean compared to a lot of the other books that are written in that genre today. Okay, and the next book I read was The Sound of Light by Sarah Sundin. I did have this one in print, but then I ended up selling it, so I don't have it right now. I gave this one 3 stars, and so far this is probably my least favorite one that I read. I did enjoy the little bits of history that were in there, but it was slower, harder to get into, and for some reason I just really didn't connect with the setting in this one. I think it was in Denmark. I don't know, I just didn't like the Danish culture in this book. And there was quite a lot of kissing in here before I felt like there was really much basis for it, like a good friendship was built. I don't know. The Jewish evacuation of Denmark, well, though, was really neat, and how they went to, I think it was Sweden, like how the Swedish king allowed them in, and how Niels Bohr was connected to it. I thought that was really neat, and just seeing Niels Bohr and his institution. But there was some more content in here. I already mentioned the kisses, and there was like a torture scene, which I really didn't appreciate. So I gave it 3 stars. If you're interested in Denmark, you might enjoy this book, but it wasn't my favorite. Then I listened to The Great Secret, the classified World War II disaster that launched the war on cancer by Jeanette Conant. I ended up giving this 2 stars. Of course, it was interesting to learn about a little bit of history, how mustard gas was really scary, and then accidentally they figured out that mustard gas actually lowered your white blood cell counts, and so it could destroy cancer. However, this book looked at it as a very positive thing and how great this was, but I'm just thinking about, you're literally listing all the side effects through here and how mustard gas kills people and how horrible it is, how much it burns, and even when it's cancer, there's so many side effects. And then people like Babe Ruth was actually one of the early people who got this treatment, and then he ended up dying a couple months later by exponential amount of tumors in his body. So it was just difficult to read through it. It was cool, the discovery of it, the accidental discovery, but I felt like it was boring and didn't really make me excited about people putting mustard gas in their body. Then I listened to The Sea Before Us by Sarah Sundin. This one was not a very remarkable book, but I thought it was really cool that it started out in Kerrville, Texas, which is somewhere where I spent a lot of my childhood. So I thought that was really neat, and that just seeing the Texan in London and his interaction with the English, and just how he thought the English were so weird and they thought the Texans were so weird. I thought that was really cool, and I liked aspects of the relationship in here. It was sweet, but I honestly don't remember much about it. I think I might continue the series because I think there's 3 books and there's 3 brothers, and so I think each book tells from the brother's point of view, which I think might be interesting, but I don't know if I'll continue it or not. Then I listened to The Mystery of the Blue Train by Agatha Christie. So after the last few modern books I had listened to, I was really annoyed at books and was like, well, they're all amateurs and why is nothing actually good? So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go back to an Agatha Christie, that's tried and true. At least it will be engaging and somewhat well written. And so I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the world building that was in there, and I don't know, it felt different than other Agatha Christie's. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It does revolve around a murder, but there was very little dwelling on the body and the actual murder. It was more about solving who did it and who stole the jewels. So I appreciated that, and I think it definitely falls on the cleaner side of Agatha Christie books. And there's a couple mentions of affairs, but nothing detailed or explicit in it. And then lastly, I read A Very Bookish Easter. This is a compilation of stories by Kelsey Bryant, Abigail Clare, Sarah Holman, and Kate Willis. So Abigail Clare, she wrote the Behind the Act that I really enjoyed, so I got this book from her, and they're supposed to be classic inspired tales of Easter. Some of them were really cool. This was the first book I read in the Bookish Holiday series. There's quite a few other ones. I have a Valentine's Day one. I think there's a Christmas one. It's a random holidays one. I thought that was neat and wanted to see what these books were all about. I liked the aspect of being inspired by a classic, although some of them did better than others. I think a lot of the stories were lacking in a lot of ways. They could have used some more editing, some more Christianity, and some of them. But some of that was just the limitations of a short story. It leaves you wanting more because only one aspect of the story kind of gets resolved, but then you don't know what's going on in the rest of their life, and you really want to see their whole life get fixed. But the Easter aspects of each story was really neat because it's very rare for you to actually read a story that is about the resurrection, about why Easter is important. Although I didn't agree with all the theology in here, I did enjoy it. The first 2 stories were definitely my favorite, and you could see the aspects of each author and their own personal stories come out through the stories. especially Abigail Clare's. I thought it was really cool, like seeing, she didn't name it by name, but HEB showed up in the book, and just like the Texas aspects. I think at least 2 of the stories happened in Texas. Yeah, the 2 middle ones happened in Texas, which I thought was really cool. The last story was definitely my least favorite because it all centered around church hurt, and a lot of these stories did have to do with some kind of like trauma or representation, which I didn't like that aspect of it. There was a lot of loose ends in the last one. But other than that, I did overall enjoy these, and I do look forward to reading the Valentine's one. And I think it's just cool to read like these short stories. You don't expect a ton out of them, but they do have Christianity. I like the little classic twist, and thought they were cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want links to any of the books that I read, they will be down in the description, and if you use the links, that really helps to support my channel. I really appreciate that you guys are here on this channel, supporting me, watching me, subscribing, and I hope to see you back next week. Bye!